All right.
Okay.
How's it
First of
going?
all, it's going great. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Supernatural Sunday. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, do you want to just know my background, or?
Sure, just what brings you into this crazy world of paranormal, cryptids, you name it.
Well, I guess. Well, I've always been interested in the paranormal ever since I was a kid. I mean, it was. I started with ancient history, and then well, you don't know, but
But you're going to tell me. No, he says no. I'm not.
I started with getting into Egyptian mythology and things like that, and kind of dived into the unknowns of the world that really interested me. I mean, I've really dived into like quantum mechanics to try and figure out what's really going on in the world around us.
That's quite the leap, so to speak, right?
Yeah. So when I was younger, this is kind of side notes. I started training martial arts when I was young and got into traditional Chinese medicine. I got a doctorate in traditional Chinese medicine, and then got a post-diploma in natural medicine. And then from there, I went on and got I got a black belt in Sandokan, which is like a mix of Olympic boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, and Indonesian weapons. And then I went to the Philippines and did another, got another black belt in Filipino weapons, which trained out there and went to the Worlds and got was invited to the Worlds and got second place in my division. And then,
great for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then when I was in the Philippines, of course, there's lots of interesting stories that kick around there, like aswangs, which are like these they're like shape-shifting creatures that they eat babies.
Oh,
they
great.
Sneak around. Yeah, they crawl on people's roofs, and they have long tongues, and they go into people's bellies. There's
great
stories of the white lady.
That's what we need in COVID. Yeah. Actually, I hadn't heard of that one, so see, I'm learning something here myself, so it's pretty.
Yeah, they've got all kinds of mythology out there as well, which was pretty interesting, and they really believe it out there. Like, it's like to this day, it's a major belief. And then I got interested in the hominids when it came to Sasquatch, and really looked deep into that. And I'm a huge believer when it comes that something is out there when it comes to Sasquatch.
Have you ever gone exploring for Sasquatch yourself?
I have several times, but I've never actually gotten it. I hadn't encountered anything until I took an Indigenous instructor course through Outward Bound Canada. And when I was on the Indigenous instructor course, we were up in Pemberton, and we were at a place called Blowdown Lake. It's right near Gott Peak. It's way in the backwoods. We were doing an 18-day hike from Pemberton to Lytton through the mountains. And
that's pretty serious terrain there for people who aren't aware. It's not city living by any means, right?
No, it was an unbeaten. It was an old path, but an unbeaten path. So we had to remark it because a forest fire had swept through there and ripped it all down. So we remarked the path for the rangers, and so the rangers could go back through and tear it, like basically fly in and cut down the trees and make the path again. So anyways, so when we were out there, we were leaving Blowdown Lake to head into the Stein Valley, and a lady, she's like, I can't do this. We were hiking 100-pound rucksacks, and it's a long hike, so you got to bring the supplies needed. So this lady, she's like, I can't do this. And so the instructors, they had taken her aside to talk to her to try and convince her that she could do it. And otherwise we had to turn around and hike her out. It was quite a hike to get back out to the main road. Anyways, so whilst they were doing that, I had looked up. We were just kind of lounging and waiting, the group, and I had looked up the mountain, and there was a path of trees that kind of went up the mountain, and there was like an opening, and there's basically one tree and an opening, and I saw something standing there, and I looked, and as soon as I looked up, this thing, it basically stretched its leg out to the side and went right behind the tree, and the whole tree shook.
Wow.
Like that.
So pretty big, obviously.
Yeah, whatever it was big enough that I could see it, and it was quite a ways up. I mean, I can't even tell you the distance. I'd be lying if I told you, but it was quite a ways up. And so I asked my instructor. He's a professional outfitter hunter, and I was like, I know there's grizzlies up in this area. Do you think that there was possibly a grizzly? But the way it moved sideways like that, he's like, there's no possible way it was a grizzly. So then it really piqued my interest about the area. So I have made a trip back up there, but I didn't have the opportunity to see anything else. But when we were hiking back down the trail, we've had found some Sasquatch structures on the way back, like bent trees, like wedged down and locked into other trees. And one of the elders from the Linton tribe band, he had said, he's like, yeah, this is Sasquatch territory. That's why they mark these areas. So when you're entering, that's how you know. So anyways, so that was my first kind of thing that I've ever seen when it came to Sasquatch. When I was about 16, now this is a whole other area when it comes to UFOs. I've been very fortunate with UFOs.
Okay.
When I was about 16, I was hanging out with my friends, as teenagers do. And my mom came running in the house and she says, you got to come out here and see this. So the sun was setting, kind of like it is right now. And it was summertime and there were only a few clouds in the sky. And we came outside. There's about 4 of us. And we came out and I looked up and there were 3 silver metallic objects. And it was like they were playing tag through the clouds. And you could see it clear as day. I mean, there's no mistaking it. And having the other witnesses, it was great because I'm not just standing there by myself and people telling me I'm crazy.
So were they obviously going in different flight paths that would be like not normal for our...
They were 90-degree angles, zigzagging like through the clouds, and then they'd come out and we watched this for about 45 minutes.
Wow.
And then eventually they just vanished.
Just disappeared.
So that was my first
cool. For sure.
UFO experience. And then about 2010, between 2010 and 2011, I'd made my trip to the Philippines for the first time. And I was out there and I was dating a girl from the Philippines. And she's like, oh, we got to go to my friend's kid's birthday. So we go out and it's right on the ocean. It's like right off the ocean. You drive into their place and it's right there. So we spend our time there, whatever. So we hop in the back of a pickup truck and I'm laying down in the back of the pickup truck and my girlfriend and her friend are sitting there. And as we pull out the gates, it's a dirt road and it's right beside the ocean. And we came out and I saw about probably 200-300 people standing on the road and they were just looking up over the ocean. And I'm like, so of course my curiosity guided me up and I looked up and there were 3 red orbs doing formations over the ocean. And I told my girlfriend, she'd been fighting me on it for years. Well, I'd been with her for 7 years, so she'd been fighting me on it for all that time. And she's like, "Oh, you and your alien gods." I was like, "No, they're not alien gods. They're just aliens.
They're just aliens. They're just there."
Yeah. And I said, I turned around and I'm like, "Look, you see," and she's like, "Oh, it's just the U.S. military because they have Air Force bases. Like we were in Cebu, and there's the MAC-10 Air Base there, and so apparently they see them all the time up there. And so it's quite common. And so nobody thinks anything of it. But I thought, what an excellent testing ground for U.S. military to do new like practice with new technology because nobody believes it there. It's very religious out there, right? So when it comes to alien life, it's a no. So anyways, I was stunned. So I was like, oh, well, it's either U.S. military or it's kind of along the lines of in every underdeveloped country, there seems to be a huge increase of sightings since like 2003, 2004. Like Mexico was having major sightings. I mean, the Mexican government had to come out and say, hey, look, we're seeing thousands of UFOs in the skies, but they haven't done anything, so please don't panic.
Yeah, there have been a few, obviously, videos released over the past couple of years in Mexico and other places.
Oh, there's a documentary called First Contact, and it's with this group. They call themselves the Vigilantes. And those guys, they set up high definition cameras for stills, and then they put high definition video cameras right beside them so they can document with both video and photography. So that's a really good documentary if you ever get a chance to see it. But anyways, it just came to mind that in these underdeveloped countries that they do have major sightings all the time. It's just that people don't care as much, as if there was a major sighting over a major city like Vancouver, for example. People would be going nuts, taking pictures and tell us the truth. And out there, they just blow it off.
That actually brings up an interesting point. So what do you think about disclosure? Do you think we're any closer to having the secrets revealed to us, or
they're drip feeding us slowly. I mean, with the recent release from the Pentagon. I mean, just last year with those 3 videos being released.
Exact video was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, with the U.S. Navy, and then they were having the top secret briefings with the U.S. With Congress or the U.S. Senate, and now apparently this year they're going to release some details on that. The New York Times just did an article just last month that they were going to release some of the information that they had off-world vehicles not made from anything on Earth. So that kind of was like, that was a big deal. And everybody in the UFO community was like, okay,
we want to see it. We want to see it. Right?
And then about 2 weeks after, they retracted it. So it makes you wonder.
Maybe you don't want to see it. Maybe we're not ready to show you yet.
Well, I think a lot of people are ready, but more and more people are becoming, comfortable with the idea. I mean, it doesn't make sense that there's nothing besides
we're the only thing in the entire universe.
Right. The Kepler satellite is just, the Kepler satellite has just identified like 3,000 plus Earth-like planets just within the Milky Way, within our own galaxy. So, I mean, with the hundreds of billions of galaxies that are out there, it's impossible. There's no other life.
This goes a little bit into woo territory, but what do you think about the theory that Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and alien cultures are perhaps tied? I mean, some people say that, that Bigfoot, part of the reason that we can never capture them is that they're so in tune with whatever technology we have, they avoid it. Right. And so maybe they're from somewhere else. I don't know. I'm just throwing that.
There are a few encounters where UFOs have been present and supposedly Sasquatches. Now it's interesting, but who knows?
Who knows? I'm just throwing it out there that maybe Chewbacca wasn't such a stretch, right?
Right. And I believe the Death Star was modeled after Enceladus. I think it's Enceladus, one of the moons of Jupiter, and it's identical. Yeah. I think it's Enceladus. I'm not. I don't quote me on that, but it's one of the moons. Anyways, so it's almost like they knew something back then. just like Spielberg when he was working with Dr. J. Allen Hynek on Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Dr. J. Ellen Hynek, we ran Project Blue Book for how long? You know?
Yeah.
So he knew things, and so he was putting the input for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So there's some plausibility to it.
For sure. I mean, nobody knows, so we're all speculating right now. So nobody's right or nobody's necessarily wrong, right?
That's right. And then, like, it was funny that you mentioned that Sasquatch seems to avoid technology when we try and take pictures with trail cameras or anything else. There is a theory out there that maybe it's releasing a frequency, like a sound frequency we can't hear, just like a dog whistle, that when those cameras are about to go off, they can hear them, like they can hear the technology working. So, and they avoid it. Also a possibility. But then there's these, the missing 401 cases with David Pilatus. So, and I don't know if you've ever watched the documentaries.
I haven't seen that one, no.
Watch them.
Okay.
It's kind of, it's creepy. It's basically disappearances of, like, major disappearances of children and adults, adults that are experienced hikers, doctors, just intelligent people that
just go missing,
should know their way, and they just they'll find, like, their clothes, they'll never find them. It's almost like they drop right into the ground and their clothes are in a nice little neat pile. They'll bring out bloodhounds to try and track these people down. The dogs will just lay down, not a scent. It's almost like they were either picked right up off the ground, or they just somehow vanished. The more David Pilates digs into it, the more it doesn't make sense, because every time there's a Sasquatch sighting, sometimes there's a Sasquatch sighting, and then there's a disappearance, and then there's UFO sightings in the same area. So it's all really it's really mysterious.
For sure.
It really is. And if you get a chance, there's 2 documentaries on it. The Missing 401, the first one, and then the second one is Missing 401, The Hunted. And it's about experienced hunters that are out in the woods in groups. And one will just mysteriously vanish within a group. Like, it's bizarre, the cases. You gotta hear them.
There's quite a few, because
if you get a chance.
Of course, the first thought is they ran into some animal like a bear, and something bad happened in that way. But then
they reel all those things
They don't
up.
often find the bodies, right? Which is, you think you would find at least part of it somewhere.
Sometimes they do.
Or the truck, I don't know. Like, whole trucks go missing and things.
Well, sometimes the people will vanish, and they'll find them like a child will vanish, and they'll be thousands of meters up a mountain on a cliffside where they find the body. And it's unexplainable, because like a 4-year-old is not going to make that hike. It just, from the trail, it just doesn't make any sense.
Well, there was that weird story last year where the child was lost for I think a couple of days, and he said, when they found him, they like, "Where were you?" And he said, "Oh, a bear took care of me," which is kind of.
That's right.
That's kind of.
It's just like that. It's also makes the lines of a missing 401 case. Yeah. It's bizarre.
If you were going to go out and try to do an investigation for Bigfoot, what would you bring with you? What do you think would attract them, so that you could
attract them?
Get sort of a closer encounter. Do you have a technique that you're trying to master?
Well, there are a lot of people that are in this field. They do say that chocolate bars and apples. Apparently, they're madly attracted to chocolate bars.
Well, aren't we all? Really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if it works, but apples are the big one.
Have you tried the knocking theory? The knocks on the trees?
I have. I haven't gotten any responses. It's luck of the draw. I mean, you got to be in the right place at the right time. I think there's a possibility, if they are ancient hominids that have lived alongside humans for thousands of years, and they're just intelligent enough to live side by side, but want nothing to do with us, then they avoid us at all costs. And if that's the case, there's a possibility they migrate through the valleys where, I mean, not everybody's going, we don't explore like we used to. You know, so people aren't out there in the woods with the hundreds of millions of hectares of land that we especially we have in the Rockies through BC, or even in Washington State. People just aren't way out there. So the encounters that do happen are a fluke.
I really want to believe they're out there. I really do. But I'm not a big fan of the Patterson film. I think you know what I'm referring to. I want to believe that, but I can't believe that. For me, that's a guy in a suit. So I don't know. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts on that is that's a heavily debated subject, even between scientists, because when you really look at the video when it was taken, you're talking around the time that if you watch the old Star Trek, when you look at the monkey suits on the old Star Trek. That's the most advanced suits.
That's true. That suit was way advanced over anything on Star Trek. I'll give you that one.
When you really slow down the video, you can see the hair is attached to the muscle.
Yeah.
and the way it walks, humans apparently can't replicate that. I have to. Dr. Jeff.
Put you on the spot here. Don't worry.
Okay, Dr. Jeff Meldrum. He's a primate locomotion. He specializes in primate locomotion. He's like one of the only ones in the world where he can take a casting of Sasquatch print and actually tell you if it's fake or not, because he can see the bone structures and the dermal ridges, like the prints. And he really analyzes everything. Like if somebody's pulling a hoax, they don't understand the bone structure and the way a foot lands and the pressure that it'll put down into the dirt or the mud. And if you look into Dr. Jeff Meldrum, he makes compelling cases of that there is something out there. All the evidence, like trace evidence that he has collected over these last probably 10 years, until he was always interested in it, but until he became a tenure professor, he wasn't allowed to delve into whatever he wanted or be shunned. He never becomes a tenure professor. No, so when he did become a tenure professor, that's when he dove into it and he said, I've got all this evidence and I can prove that there is something out there, because these tracks, he'd received like 20 tracks from one incident, and he can line them all up and say, this is how it moves, this is how much it weighs, and he can actually prove it through the evidence, like just through all scientific techniques that he knows. He's also somebody to look into if you're curious about the actual science behind it. I'll send Paul another podcast that you can listen to, and it is amazing.
That'd be awesome. Yes, awesome. Yeah. You always like to learn more because you can never know enough, right? You can't.
I sent this podcast to one of my most skeptical friends, and he was like, "Well," I'm like, "You can't argue with this guy." Like he is.
Let us know what it is, and when I do this, we'll crawl along the bottom so that anybody who's watching this video can take a peek at it too.
Absolutely.
Okay. I just want to say shortly to that, if anybody happens to be in the Lower Mainland and they're out at the Kilby Historical Site, there are some footprints that have been cast in plaster there if they wanted to take a look. They're pretty cool.
Oh, really? Yeah, I went to a Sasquatch exhibit in Yale. They had that their little museum. I had to check it out. I was out there gold panning, and
that's a great spot too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Apparently, one of the highest ratings of Sasquatch sightings in the world is at Chilliwack Lake. So that's an excellent place to go take a look.
Awesome. Well, I guess we're running short on time here, but I want to thank you for stopping in and chatting with us for a little bit. And if you ever have anything else you want to just share with our group and share with our friends on Supernatural Sunday, please come back.
Oh, absolutely.
It's been great talking to you. When this whole COVID thing is over and we can get together and have a longer chat, we'll do that. And who knows, maybe we'll be out and do some I don't want to say hunting because that's the wrong word. We don't want to kill anything on this podcast.
We'll say exploring.
We'll just exploring and investigating and see what we come up with. Maybe learn some new techniques from you.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. I do have more stories too. Okay.
No, I don't mean to catch up. Or maybe I do. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you again soon.